Good morning. I'm gonna go for a little walk. Beautiful little spot, not far from my house. Woke up this morning with all kinds of things on my mind. First thing I saw when I grabbed my phone, I opened it up and I see a notification that Zelensky announced to the world that he has a cruise missile that is capable of hitting Moscow, capable of flight over 600 miles. This is before the negotiation that's supposed to happen today between Trump and Putin, where Trump is going to hopefully negotiate stop to this war, peace talks. One of the reasons I wanted to tell you that why hasn't Russia, if it's so strong and it's winning so much, why can't it just go after all the Ukrainians and just knock them out and so on and so forth? Well, there's a very good reason for that. First of all, Ukrainians, or Ukraine, has always been Russia. I know right now it's a supposedly independent country and so on and so forth, but 80% of Ukraine speaks Russian as native language. Always has and always will. When I grew up there, I didn't grow up in Ukraine, but when I grew up in Soviet Union, Ukrainian language was considered, for the uneducated, for the country village people. It's basically a slang of Russian. Russian was the literal language. All the writers, all the composers, all the whatever, all the culture was Russian. It's still true today. I spoke to you about NATO. NATO started up in 1949, I think that was the year when NATO became the defensive alliance against communism. Now, I told you about Operation Paperclip, about all the Nazis that were imported into United States, Britain, Canada, South America, wherever. They were supported, they were given protection. Them and their families moved all over the world. Guess where NATO started from? Give it some thought, okay? Right at the beginning of when I started this channel, I posted a video with Lindsey Graham and McCain in 2016, standing in front of the Azov Brigade. And you can take it's the very first video in this channel. And the man behind him is Poroshenko, who was the premier or the president or whatever the hell you want to call him of Ukraine at the time. Azov Brigade was outlawed in the United States Congress. How that stopped being outlaw, I don't know, but we can pretty much put it together at this point. When Soviet Union fell apart in the 90s, it was agreed and decided that we're going to cooperate Russia is going to cooperate with Europe, and we're going to live happily ever after, helping each other and cooperating. Well, it did not work out that way, and Europeans did not want it to work out that way. In reality, the 90s in Russia were a nightmare. Ask any Russian, it was an ugly free-for-all. I remember seeing ads from newspapers and stories of women, mothers, begging somebody to take their children because they didn't have enough money to feed them. Way too many things to talk about, but it was very, very ugly. Europe didn't give a shit and actually instigated all these things. Now we have Crimea annexed, and Russia is the aggressor, and it's annexing all these lands, and we're going to negotiate for some lands back. Let me tell you something. Crimea, after the coup, said, we're not having this Nazi government. We're not going to have Nazis ruling over us. Lugansk and Donetsk, also mostly Russian, said the same thing. No way, no how. Crimea had a referendum, meaning the population of Crimea voted who do they want to be with. I think over 80, maybe 90% of the population voted to be with Russia. No way, no how is Crimea going back to Ukraine. It was not annexed. It went back to Russia the way it wanted to. The population of Crimea did. Lugansk and Donetsk wanted to be accepted by Russia, but for whatever reason, they did not. The Poroshenko, I'm not sure if it was 2014 or 2015. I think it was 2014. But anyway, they sent the Ukrainian military to fight the separatists. This war started in 2014, and the Ukrainian new government that was annexed, truly annexed, and voted in by CIA, Victoria Nuland, Lindsey Graham's, and John McCain too, I guess. And who else, we don't know. But that military was supplied, trained, and the coup was orchestrated for years prior to 2014. It didn't just happen out of the blue. It was orchestrated. And this is fact. This is not something that I need to explain to you. If you want to find out about it, there's more than enough information out there. Even on YouTube, you can find information out there. Do a search, a Google search or a YouTube search, Nazis in Ukraine. You'll see videos from 2010, 2008, 5 by BBC, Time magazine, all kinds of videos out there. It's not difficult to find. So anyway, 2014 until 2022, this war was going on. Over 15,000 civilians, people died in Lugansk and Donetsk. Killed by artillery fire, whatever. Sleeping in their homes, minding their own business, trying to live their lives. This is fact. Okay? So, when you're talking about Russia annexing this or annexing that, far from the truth. Russia is not the aggressor here. The West is the aggressor here, and has been way before 2014, way before 2000s. World War II. Russia lost 27 million in that war. 27 million. They did not forget who Nazis are. They did not forget who the aggressors are. And they never will. Okay, what can I say? I don't know how we're all going to come out of this, but God's plan is going to happen just the way God's plan is supposed to happen. It is written. It's going to happen. We are going to have a one world government eventually. Like I said, say what you want about the devil. He's not lazy. He's busy. He's been busy for a long time. We are so divided and separated. I watched some BBC news about the strikes in Gaza, that Israel struck Gaza, and they have Palestinian diplomats, or whatever you want to call them, Hamas supporters, claiming that Hamas reported there's 400 some poor civilians, children and women, horrible thing that died during these strikes. I don't know if those numbers are correct. Actually, I can guarantee that those numbers are not correct. But we are being separated on so many different levels, it's unreal. Divide and conquer. That's the plan. Divide and conquer. Not only is Russia being divided to be conquered from the rest of the world, from Europe and from the United States and whatever, they're the enemy. The majority of Russians loved America. I'm not so sure how they feel about it, about America now. I mean, we've shit so much on them. I kind of think that there's lots of people that don't feel the same way anymore. We've got women against men, and children against fathers and mothers. We are being divided to be conquered. Okay? You know, they talked about Ukraine. The Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons. Let me explain something to you. Ukraine never had nuclear weapons. Yes, there were nuclear weapons on Ukraine soil, but they were operated from Russia, from Kremlin. They couldn't fire those weapons if they wanted to. You understand? They didn't have nuclear weapons. Russia had nuclear weapons. I heard there was a negotiation that Putin wants the control of the nuclear plants in Ukraine, and he wants this and he wants that from Ukraine. You know who built those nuclear installations, those power plants in Ukraine? Russia did, when Ukraine was Russia. Okay? Ukraine, since the West took it over in a democratic way, hasn't built shit. Actually, their industry is destroyed. It's been stolen. There is no industry in Ukraine anymore. Okay? Its economy is finished. The poor Ukrainians today, most likely the vast majority, wants nothing to do with this war. They've had enough. They've had more than enough. Okay? I'm watching BBC and I'm watching Newsmax and whatever. It's the same shit everywhere. We're being played like a violin. And the end is not pretty. the elites, or whatever you want to call them, they think they have their bunkers and they have their money and they have their gold, and they just need manageable numbers to rule over. That's what they think is going to happen. So they're pushing. They're actually pushing for a third world war, for a nuclear war, for some kind of catastrophe on global scale. And they'll put in their digital currency or whatever else their plan is. But me and you, we just want to live. We just want to raise our kids. We want to appreciate our women. We want our women to appreciate us. We want to enjoy the sunrise and the sunset and watching our kids grow. I don't know how it's gonna work out, but if you believe in God, trust God. Because if you believe in God, this life is not the life we're after. We are after life evermore, forever life in the kingdom coming. Right now we have to live with what we have to live with. But like the book of Job, my favorite book of the Bible, and I've spent decades studying the Bible. That's the reason I started this channel. Adam ate no apple is not about politics. It's about helping people to understand the Word of God. And you are being misled in so many ways. It's unreal. I love you. I thank you. I pray God help us, protect us. I ask this in the name and power of my God, my Lord, the one true begotten Son. In His name and His power, by His blood, may He help us, lead us, guide us. May His Holy Spirit abide with us. We love and thank Him for all things. Amen.
Day vacationing together. Through the years, Nate and JD share grandparents. JD's mother and Nate's father are siblings. And Nate Vance is out front now. Nate, I really appreciate your talking, and I want to get to exactly why you're speaking out, because I know you do so after careful consideration. So, Nate, I know you call yourself a Republican-leaning independent. I know you've been supportive at times of the Trump administration. But on this issue of Ukraine, where you have put so much of your life over these past few years, you think your cousin is misguided. How come?
Excuse me. Well, I think my experience in Ukraine has given me a unique perspective that most Americans don't have. There are certainly cultural differences both between the Ukrainians and Americans and the Russians. And I think if you try to deal with Russia through an American lens, it will come back to bite you. They don't necessarily think like we think. And I'm talking about their political class. I've personally witnessed them shooting their own troops on enough occasions that it wasn't just an isolated incident. It's happened quite a bit. Enough to the point where you could consider it to be policy if troops are retreating. So these people, as a policy, will eat their own. So they will not hesitate to eat an American president or American vice president. They don't care what we think. They're not our allies, and they never will be, not at least for a generation.
I know that you've tried to reach out to your cousin since he took office, but haven't been successful. I mean, what were you planning to say to him? I mean, what do you want to say to him now in this moment?
Well, look, I mean, there's more than one reason why you could make the argument for supporting Ukraine. There's the, kind of emotional argument, the human element argument part of it, which, fine, if that's the argument you want to make in order to support Ukraine, then I support that. There's also the element of how it will affect the United States long term, right? So if you're just more transactional in nature and you are concerned, what is the benefit for the United States? I don't think there's any scenario where like if this war pauses and sanctions are lifted, Russia has spent the last 3 years kind of beefing up their military-industrial complex, and if you lift those sanctions, you're going to see a massive influx of funds into that military-industrial complex, and they're going to build a war machine out of it, right? That's what they're going to do. And the concept of an imperialistic, aggressive, modernized military Russia who has learned their lessons about modern combat is problematic for our future. And if the Russians are given significant concessions in this ceasefire, they will spin that as a victory of sorts. But their view is they're not done. So to them, it's just a chance to regroup, build up and modernize, and they'll come back. And when they do come back, they'll be more of a problem than they are now. Right now, they're at the weakest they will ever be. As soon as the ceasefire starts, they will immediately start to get stronger and continue to get stronger every day thereafter. So the way this ends is important.
In that context, obviously, I think I'm thinking of the moment when your cousin, Vice President Vance, publicly reprimanded Ukraine's president, right? It's an unforgettable moment in the Oval Office when your cousin's sitting on the couch and Zelensky is next to Trump sitting in those chairs. Let me just play it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
J.D. Vance was seen as widely seen as the instigator, in that moment, right? When he got it, you should show appreciation, and he was angry.
Yeah.
You obviously have known him his whole life. Did it surprise you, the way he acted in that moment?
I was surprised. I think what surprised me the most was, regardless of the situation, there's a certain level of decorum that should be reached. And, I'm not naive enough to think that, national leaders don't debate behind closed doors. But when you do that and you publicly, kind of ridicule someone in public, that they have to almost defend themselves. So it was really disappointing to see it for me. I disagreed with that tact.
Now,
there's a much more diplomatic way to say, wait, I think we're getting off on the wrong foot here. Maybe we can kind of, readdress what our positions are and things like that. There's much better ways to handle that.
I know, Nate, that you and Vice President Vance have not spoken about this issue, right,
Mm-hmm.
since you've come back. But I know you've reached out to him. I'm curious. You did share some photos of the two of you growing up at his grandmother's house. He's in the Superman shirt there on the tractor. Then JD spent time with your family in California. And, so these are all the times you spent together. What was he like then? And how do you feel now that, I guess, I don't know how to put it, he's not returning your call on this issue that you know so much about?
Well, I can't, in all fairness to JD, say that he received that message and then ignored it. I can't do that because I don't know that he got it. But I did reach out. But regardless of whether or not I reached out or not, he definitely knew I was there and at no point tried to make contact, and there were ways to do that. So when, if a wise person, if they're going to make a decision, tries to find every available piece of information to kind of come to a conclusion about something, and this is such a dramatic issue, or such a serious issue that, why not seek out every piece of information? He certainly doesn't have to take my advice, but I do find it a little strange that he never sought the advice in the first place.
Well, Nate, we really appreciate your taking the time. Again, as I said to everybody, I know you did this after careful consideration, but